Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 29 of Down to Watch podcast. I am your host, Kahmeela.
I am Dan.
I like it. The curtain has been pulled back. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
It's 2016 now.
See you later, 2015. I guess that's not how time works.
That's not how time works.
Yeah. It's over 2015.
Yeah, later, dude. We never have to talk about you again.
Probably will.
Yeah, exactly.
Under oath.
All right, it's still early in the year in 2016, and y'all are probably, I don't know if you still write checks or still writing 2015 on them. But on your other documents, you're probably still typing or writing 2015. So let's try to get past that.
2016.
You're probably still writing 2015.
I know.
It's 2016.
Up in your mind.
Much appreciated. So let's get into this. Just so you guys are aware, there will be spoilers, and this movie that we're talking about today is really, it weighs heavy on the big old plot twist and reveal at the end. So if you haven't seen Fracture and you want to see Fracture, you should probably go watch Fracture before you listen to this podcast. Which, by the way, that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about Fracture, and we're continuing our hey girl,
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling special. So yeah, I don't know. We haven't really been doing too much this past week. We've been kind of like lingering around on holiday vacations and whatnot. I have probably watched lots and lots of hours of The Walking Dead, and I'm okay with that. It was on.
You've been on break.
I've been on break.
I've been working.
Yes.
Long weekend though. It was great.
So if you guys want to share what you have been watching with us, or whatever, you can post something on our Down to Watch Facebook page, or you can tweet us at DTW Podcast, or you can send an email downtowatchpodcast@gmail.com. All right, let's talk about Fracture. Fracture came out in 2007, and it was directed by Gregory Hoblit and written by Daniel Pine and Glenn Gers. The summary is, an attorney intent on climbing the career ladder towards success finds an unlikely opponent in a manipulative criminal he is trying to prosecute. Our personal history with this movie, I have seen it two or three times maybe. And it's been like so long since I'd seen this, I had almost forgotten what the twist was until we got closer to the end of it. But, Dan, have you ever seen this movie?
Never heard of it.
Really?
Nope.
Huh. And, okay. So...
But, I like Anthony Hopkins and I like Ryan Gosling. And it was interesting to see Anthony Hopkins play, a smooth criminal again. We know him as Hannibal Lecter. It's like, duh.
Right.
And by 2007, when this came out, Ryan Gosling was probably a thing.
A little bit, yeah. But I think this movie is kind of different from what maybe he wanted to be. I think that at this point, this is Hollywood trying to make him into more of a Hollywood star. And more because he's been doing a lot of
do a cop.
Yeah, like he's been mostly like up to this point
Jodie
like
Foster.
indie films, like and
Right.
playing really interesting characters.
Yeah, this was an interesting film. Like this movie, came out in 2007. So even as we're watching it, I'm like, oh wow, this movie probably came out in the 90s because it had kind of this like the lighting was trying to be film noir, but a lot of times it kind of overall. Just with the editing and the lighting, kind of came off like something. Stylistically, it just was dated. Yeah,
there were a couple points and scenes like the lighting in Anthony Hopkins' house. Like there's like a couple spotlight, like very, and
it just seemed like it was trying too hard.
Yeah,
almost to a certain extent. It's like, okay, we get it. It's in you're in the police station. And it's got this weird lighting, but another scene in the police station is fucking bright as hell. You've got all the fluorescents on, and it's just kind of like, okay, we get it. But the writers, as far as the script goes, Daniel Pine and Glenn Gers have something to be proud about. I could see this. Could you imagine this movie edited as though it were done by like Snatch or like Smoking Aces? It's like stuff.
Interesting.
That would be one way to handle it. Another way would be. If you're going to do a modern film noir, I thought Seven was really kind of like the standard. And at that point, it had already come out, so there's plenty to borrow from.
Yeah. But what I did really appreciate about this is the plot twist. It wasn't like very apparent.
No,
Like,
it was great.
they did it really well.
Couple of holes in that, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that. I see this movie as really having 4 acts.
Okay.
Yes, and so that's how I took notes.
Okay.
And the opening, are we doing a recap?
Well, let's talk about the characters and actors first.
All right, yes.
First, of course, this is Anthony Hopkins' film. I would argue.
Yeah.
So Anthony Hopkins is our lead, and he plays Ted Crawford, who
Yes.
is the man who shoots his wife.
Yeah, and I love in the opening scene, like they show where Anthony Hopkins' character works. There's like an airplane crash remains scene, like CSI in his front office. Like
Right.
It's just like he has a big job. He's got a Porsche, and he speeds off in his little silver ego trip of a car, and he has like titanium and purple shade sunglasses. Like this guy's like rich,
Yes.
like to make that clear.
He is pooping money.
It was just strange. It was like the Mousetrap game meets Days Are Our Lives meets Mr. Megorium's Magical Emporium, because the marbles were gravity defying in this little machine that he's got.
So we find out that Anthony Hopkins, aside from being rich, apparently he's also very smart and very clever. He makes these kinetic,
toys.
These toys, these big
Sculptures.
elaborate things.
Yeah.
And he just has them hanging out in his house.
Kinetic machines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the whole, the things where you drop a marble in this crazy maze and it goes off and does things on its own.
Like Mousetrap.
Yes.
Did you ever play Mousetrap when you were a kid? The board game?
I don't think so. I know we didn't have it.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Have you ever played it?
I don't think so. So we're going to put this on pause and run out to Toys R Us right quick and go over just...
We are. Oh, my goodness.
Go grab Mousetrap. Yeah, I've never actually played Mousetrap.
Oh, you're going to love it.
That sounds like fun.
Oh, yeah. You're going to love it.
All right, so next we have, I guess, I don't know if order of appearance or importance. Do you have the woman who played Mrs. Crawford? You have her name?
Oh, Emily Dietz or something like that. Hold
Okay.
on.
Well,
Give me a second. I can find it.
Okay.
But this in the opening credits is also this kind of like adultery by Pepsi. And there's like this whole adultery scene, which made it a little Days of Our Lives, like interspersed with the Mousetrap game. Like they disclose basically like there's somebody's having a love affair.
Yeah.
Adultery by Pepsi, because there's a big ass Pepsi can. Is there poolside?
That's maybe Pepsi
After
should
you're
have
done having some adultery, enjoy a nice Pepsi when you're poolside.
Pepsi, rethink your marketing. So we have
So Jennifer
Jennifer
was
Crawford
played by Mbeth Davids.
Okay. Davids. And she, poor thing, she doesn't really get much screen time of acting other than laying in a bed in a vegetative state.
But she's been in some credible things. She's been in Schindler's List, The Amazing Spider-Man, Army of Darkness.
That's what I'm saying. Like, she's a great actress. She's been in a lot of things, and I always enjoy seeing her. But, yeah, so she plays Anthony Hopkins, Ted Crawford's wife, Jenny, and who is having the affair with Billy Burke, Billy Burke, who plays Lieutenant Rob Nanali.
Lieutenant Bob, as we'll refer to him later.
And some of you guys may know Billy Burke from Twilight. He plays the girl's dad in Twilight. And I thought it was funny because there's a scene, and I'm pretty sure this was well before Twilight, but there's a scene when he comes in and he talks about, when he first meets Anthony Hopkins, he says, "Oh, there's a lot of vampires out there." It's like, and you go on to make you be credible.
That's funny.
Yeah, for Twilight. It's just a little chuckle.
We'll jump back to that because that's How to Get Away with Murder. So, we're within Act 1 of Fracture, and we establish adultery. We establish the class of people we're dealing with.
Yeah,
right.
We still got 2 more.
And then there's the shiny sports cars. Like the next scene is introducing this woman, Mbeth, Jenny.
Okay.
Jenny comes home.
Okay. Yes. So wait, you're counting the opening credits and scenes as Act 1?
Is a sub part of Act 1. Act 1 has 3 subparts. Each of the acts has 3 subparts.
Okay. We've also got, obviously, Ryan Gosling plays Willy Beachum, who is the hotshot prosecutor.
Yeah.
And he works for the
district attorney's, the prosecutor's office.
Okay. And he has just recently gotten a job at this
corporate America.
In this crazy high-powered position in this crazy high-paying job and blah, blah, blah. And we get the gist that you know, I don't know where this is supposed to take place. I'm assuming in California.
Los Angeles.
Oh, okay. And Willy's got this southern twang on him.
Which is strange. I wanted to talk about the accents. Does Anthony Hopkins have an Irish accent sometimes?
Sometimes he does.
And then Ryan Gosling sometimes has a Texan accent.
Yes.
Okay.
So
All right,
just
checking.
so just from
Wasn't me.
so just from Ryan Gosling's southern twang, I guess we're supposed to get to the point where, and eventually, like we get the actual backstory of him, but that he's like, you know, not from money. He worked his way through law school, and you know, so this high-paying job is a big deal to him, and he's in the prosecutor's office. He's like what 97%.
96% success rate or something.
Yeah, something like that. He's like goes around. He's kind of like he's cocky. He's a little bit more arrogant now that he's on his way out the door for this from this old job, and like he's got all the women like in his office are kind of fawning all over him. But
his secretary's hot,
and I feel like I'm
Zoe Kazan. She played Mona, the secretary.
And I'm also and so like the way that Mona like dotes on him and looks at him all moon-eyed and everything. And I'm almost positive that when he introduced himself as Willy, there was an inappropriate joke that went along with it.
Oh, of course. Yeah, right. Well, we don't get to him, actually, for a while.
For a while, right.
Yeah.
And I'm just, you know, these are just our main characters. And then we have Rosamund Pike, who plays Nikki Gardner, who is Big Willy's
sexy boss.
Yeah. And everybody knows her from Gone Girl.
Oh, okay.
So now, let's get into this movie.
Yeah, so after the adultery by Pepsi opening scenes, she comes home in like mansions, just a huge, ridiculous house. And this subpart, too, I'm going to call Dead Woman. At first, I'm like, is this yet another mansion? Is this somebody else's house? No, we realize she's home, and she's with Anthony Hopkins' character, Ted.
Yes. So, wait, before we get too far into this, sorry. I wanted to point out.
Blue balls.
I wanted to point out that we do get a little dialogue between Mrs. Crawford and Lieutenant Bob, or Lieutenant Rob.
Yeah.
And we find out, it's just very little bit, that they're having an affair at like some hotel resort or something. He doesn't know where she lives. I'm not even sure he knows her last name. They call each other Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Right.
So he knows really nothing about her real life.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Exactly. No, that was important. I'm glad you said that, because the way husband greets wife in this scene, right, credits are done. It's like, you're in the movie now.
Right.
He greets her in the dark, comes up from behind her in the dark. Just,
Sometimes I watch you sleep at night. What?
She's like, right, exactly. You're not supposed to be home. I'm not going to linger, but it's a super creepy scene.
Yeah, it is.
And he's like, does he love you? Gunshot. Right?
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
That's the end of that.
That's pretty much it.
Sub-act. Right.
Yeah,
so,
he's got the confrontation
and now
murder.
At this point, I broke out my notebook and wrote HDTGAWM.
What does that mean? Oh.
How to get away with murder.
Okay.
He's like, first, arrange the crime scene. Second, get a witness. Then, more gunshots. Then, burn your clothes. Then, take a boiling hot water bath.
Right?
Then, wait in your birthday suit until you dry, I guess. The emergency crews will show up in about 3 hours. So you don't have to rush anything.
Yeah, it's absolutely, at least right before dusk, I would say this happens.
Right. The witness calls it in. It's still daylight. It's like dark, pitch black. Then get your handgun. Put on some new clothes. Something comfy.
Yes,
like,
he had a nice cardigan.
Like sweats in a cardigan, right. Leave your phone on. Answer the phone, but don't use it. Right? He picks up the phone, and then he hangs up.
Yes.
Right? Leave the door ajar. That way nobody has to break anything.
Right.
Invite one of them in. Right? At this point, the audience doesn't know that
What's
one
happening.
of the cops out there is fucking his wife.
Right.
But apparently, the clockmaster does. Mr. Mousetrap does.
Yes.
So he invites one in. Get on a first-name basis with the officer.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, my name's...
From the
Ted,
very beginning.
what's your name?
Yeah.
Bob. Oh, hey, Bob. Roberts.
From
Do you mind if I call you Robert?
From the
Right.
very beginning, he is playing chess.
This is his party.
Yes.
Right. He's like, welcome to my party.
Ted
dickhead.
Crawford
Gotcha.
is playing chess.
He's like, gotcha.
Mm-mm.
Now that I know the plot twist, I almost kind of want to watch it again to see like how cocky he really is.
Yeah, it's like it's like he is checkmate at
Right.
like the beginning of the chess game,
Right.
but everybody else is still playing. Like he's
Bob,
still playing.
Ted? Yeah. Oh, a lot of vampires out there, huh, Bob?
Mr. Crawford. Just gonna slide the door open just a bit, all right? Hi.
Hi. Do I call you Rob?
Sure. Yeah, if you want to.
Lots of vampires out there.
Mr. Crawford, what do you say you give me the gun? That way I can pay more attention to what you're saying, all right?
Is that your best shot, Rob? So to speak. Tell you what, I will if you will. We both put on our guns. We set them down, and we step away. Then you can pay attention to what I'm saying.
All right. I'm gonna have to ask you to put yours down first then. Then you have my word. Everybody gives a little, we'll see what we can do about getting you what you want, okay?
Happy ending, then.
So, Mr. Crawford, your gardener tells us that your wife...
Ted.
I'm sorry.
You can call me Ted.
Ted. Great. Ted. Your wife, is she here? She all right?
I don't think she is. I shot her.
You shot your wife?
It's just like I suddenly snapped and I got the gun and I shot her in the head. I know it was wrong. Are you listening to me, Rob?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I read somewhere that the best place to find a pulse is in the femoral artery. It's on the inner surface of the other thigh. So if you just put your fingers up her skirt, you'll find
it. Okay, this whole conversation, all Rob is some eyebrows and a door.
Yeah.
He's like, we don't even really see
Yeah,
him
we
yet.
still.
Right? So, puts down his gun. He lets this one in. Okay? Put down your gun. Let one in. On the checklist. Confess immediately to the crime.
Mm-hmm.
Confess to the shooting. I know it was wrong.
And make some offhanded comment about putting your finger up his wife's skirt.
Yeah, right. And that's the reveal, right? To
Yeah.
us, like, oh shit, this is the one. This is the dude. This is
Right.
the dude for the Pepsi commercial.
Well, it's a beautiful. I do give props to the director and cinematographer before that scene in itself was set up perfectly, and of course obviously like the screenwriter because Ted Crawford had killed her in one spot or shot her in one spot, dragged her over to make sure that Lieutenant Bob had to come into there,
Right.
and she's like right there in the hallway, and she's like positioned right below her portrait of
Right.
herself, so just in case, because he shot her in the face,
Right.
so just in case he didn't recognize the body, like he would look up and see.
Right. See her picture.
Yes.
So that's the big reveal. So, adulterer, catch a case, detective. That's what Anthony Hopkins' character Ted has to say to you. Catch a case, Lieutenant Bob. Now, this is the big plot loophole number one.
Okay.
Is how did he know Robert was going to be the one that comes to the door?
Truth. I have no idea.
Like, much depends on this, because he's the guy that gets the confession and all this other stuff. He could have been apprehended and said, I'll only speak with Robert so-and-so, because we gather later that Ted's character had a private investigator and been following them and probably knew his name and all that stuff.
Right.
So he just got lucky, or it's just to move the plot forward.
Well, I have a question. I don't know if this actually works. If this is actually a real thing, but Lieutenant Bob introduces himself as a hostage negotiator. Are there only so many hostage negotiators in a police force?
Oh, that's a good point. Could be.
Because, it could be that he knew that's what he was, and that's why.
Maybe he knew his schedule, too, because it seems like his private investigator knows a lot of details about all kind of crazy shit.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe that's how you glue, they're like, hey, we need some glue to keep this plot together. And Daniel and Greg were like, Greg? Is that it? Daniel and...
Yes, Daniel and Glenn.
Glenn, sorry.
Mm.
Daniel and Glenn are like, oh, hold on. he's got this awesome private investigator. We can't afford another actor. Nobody ever sees this guy. That's even better.
All we have to do is mention him a couple times.
Yeah. That clear up all kinds of plot holes.
Okay, that works.
Because
We'll
it
do
clears up the other hole, which is how did he know which gun to get? Which we'll get to when we reveal our reveal.
That's right. Yes.
Spoiler on the spoiler.
But isn't that also though? Do all police officers have the same gun?
Well, I would imagine all uniform officers have the same gun, but
not-
maybe not. You know, it might be a precinct by precinct or, you know, department by department issue.
Okay. What else you got here?
Okay.
You had
so
another plot hole.
at that point, you know, it's whole. Robert's like, you know, we better lock. You know, Lieutenant Bob says, let's lock this down before passing it to the DA. Okay, that's the end of Act 1. Act 2 is the introduction of Willy Beachum.
Yeah.
Ryan
Slick
Gosling.
Willy.
Yep, Slick Willy. You know, basically how he's introduced his big problem that he needs to overcome when we first meet him.
He needs
compared to
he needs a
everybody else.
tuxedo.
Yeah, he needs a tux. He needs a tux. And that's how we find out it's Los Angeles, because it mentions something like how he's with Wooten and Swooten, the big L.A. premium.
Okay.
You know. And, you know, he's on his way out the job. He gets this last phone call, court appointment. They're like, hey, Jagoff, before you go off to your silk stocking law firm, we got a case for you.
And they're like, it's shut. What is it?
We got weapons. We got a weapon with prints and a signed confession. It was spontaneous and signed.
Yes.
Weapon with prints, he was told.
So it should be open and shut.
Yep.
It should be real easy.
And so it's true. They had a weapon with prints.
Mm-hmm.
So his name's Theodore Crawford, court-appointed attorney. Is not Willy Beachum, for those of you that aren't that legally savvy.
And they're saying it's not going to go to trial.
Willy is the prosecuting attorney.
Okay.
This guy is like, I'm pleading not guilty, and I want to go pro se at the arraignment. Okay.
Pro se? Does that mean he's defending himself?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He moves for an immediate trial because Ted hearts Willy. He is amused as hell that the guy that's here to prosecute him is dressed in a tuxedo. He's
Right.
like, this guy's completely unprepared.
Yes. Yes. So he's also, obviously, Ted Crawford is very great at reading people.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I don't know if he had his detective look him up before
Oh, no,
he
no.
went
He
into
just,
this.
again, got lucky as hell. Just like how his wife's lover walks right to the door, gives him his eyebrows and everything. And then he gets fucking Slick Willy on my way out the door in a tuxedo as the prosecuting attorney. He's
Who's
like, oh,
just
let's
like-
go to trial right now.
It's like, yeah, this guy's like, no, that's fine. You know, yeah. This guy doesn't have time for this, so he's going to fumble his way through this.
Right.
He's just going to, like, go,
Right.
just breeze right through.
So alarming is the district attorney's presence in the case. Lieutenant Bob goes in and confronts him in the parking lot afterwards. He's like, hey, dickhead, this is a serious case. Like, you show up in, what, a bunny costume? What is this to you? This guy's serious nut job, right? Mm-hmm. And so then, you know, we're following the adventure of Lucky Willy, because this is all about him, right? And he gets to go to his black tie event, and he just, you know, has a super sexy spy meeting with his now boss.
Yes.
I'm your new boss.
Rosamund
He's like,
Pike.
and he says, "Oh," like he'd already hit on her.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Like, he's already...
He'd already undressed you in his
Exactly,
mind.
yeah.
He said,
He's
"Oh, like
figuring
I've
out-
already thought about having sex with you."
He's figuring out what to make her for breakfast.
Right.
after
He's
work.
like, how the hell did you even get this job? He's like, well, let me tell you my questionable ethics story. You know, this guy's questionable ethics are all over the place. He's like, how I got this job, blah, blah, blah. You know, I did something very questionable. Your boss liked it. She's like, get your phone. So he gets his phone, and they're like, oh, buddy, Slick Willy. Yeah, the gun with prints, the gun's no good. And this is the shit starts to unravel phase. We're
Right.
like into phase 3 of Act 2.
Like, here's another, what I have found out after looking online, that it's a plot hole because they tell him that they have the gun, but the gun has never been fired.
Right.
What I have read is that all guns are
Right,
fired.
tested.
Yes, tested. So the never been fired would not have been said.
Nice. Well done. A fucking hole. Take that. Private detective doesn't cure that shit. Daniel and Glenn. Of course, it may not have been your fault, in which case I'm sorry. It's on the director. Anyway, shit starts to unravel. Questionable ethics guy, you know, he's still there. He's like, oh, you'll find me a gun with his prints on it. We'll find one way or the other. Like, his little questionable ethics peeks its ugly head out again.
They are
And-
tearing the place apart.
And then he goes in to enjoy the opera at his $1 million tuxedo event and then gives his new sexy boss a super creepy eye.
It's just
Like a boss. I'm like,
yeah.
met a catfish.
I mean, just from the way that he was looking at her, that's enough to call human resources. Like,
Right.
you know what? I think this is not going to work out. I'm sure.
You know, this girl likes him crazy.
Apparently,
Right.
that's her thing.
So then he's like, all right, let's investigate the crime scene. So we're moving on, still with, this is our boy, Slick Willy. You know, he goes back to the crime scene, talks to the cops. The cops are like, whoa, dude, this is screwed up. Willie's like, the gun's got to be in the house. It's got to be in the house. We all had eyes on the house. There's no way he could have gotten this gun out of the house.
Right.
Unless there was. So then he goes to jail and he talks with Ted. And Ted's like, reveals kind of like, by the way, I've hired a private investigator who is investigating you.
Yeah, which that's one of my favorite scenes.
Right.
There's
like, you can't do that.
He's
He's
like-
you're investigating me?
I sure can do that.
Right.
You know, my grandfather was an egg farmer.
This isn't going to be about your rough childhood, is it?
No, I used to candle eggs at his farm. Do you know what that is? You hold an egg up to the light of a candle and you look for imperfections. The first time I did it, he told me to put all the eggs that were cracked or flawed into a bucket for the bakery. And he came back an hour later and there were 300 eggs in the bakery bucket. He asked me what the hell I was doing. I found a flaw in every single one of them. You know, thin places in the shell and fine hairline cracks. You look closely enough and you'll find everything has a weak spot where it can break sooner or later.
You looking for mine?
I've already found yours.
What is it?
You're a winner, Willie.
Yeah. Well, I guess the joke's on me then, isn't it?
You bet your asshole's for.
So Ted's point is, there's a flaw in everything if you look deep enough, and I guess he's also trying to tell Willie, I know your cracks, bro. Like
Right.
the fact that you are trying to get the hell out of this office, and you just
he
want to
tells
wrap
him,
this up.
your fracture is that you're a winner. What does that even mean?
It doesn't make any sense.
Right, Gosling's like, damn right, bro. It's totally a bro.
He is a bro.
Bro
He
to
is a
bro
bro.
moment. Oh yeah, bro, my dad was an egg farmer. Oh yeah, bro, I'm a winner.
It doesn't. Yeah, that argument doesn't make any
Kinda
sense to me.
You can see it going down on Jersey Shore.
Fuck yeah, I'm a winner.
Right. So then we move into like Act 3, which is the trial.
Dun dun dun. And this whole way, and I love the fact that Ted is putting on this act of, I don't know what's, the right words for this, that, and
Right.
the other.
The
And
judge
I'm just
is like, you might want to object. He's like, oh, I don't know, you guys and your fancy legal objections.
yeah, so he's like doodling and drawing and making lots of noise to distract everyone, and then they finally get Lieutenant Bob on the stand.
It's like, what's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know the legal fucking the victim,
Yes, fucking the victim. Right.
and everyone's like, what?
Right.
Because Lieutenant Bob has told no one
Right.
up until this point.
Right, he's up on the stand being like, yeah, I got a confession from this guy.
Yeah.
That's not okay.
No.
If you're screwing the victim, you need to recuse yourself
Well, I
from
guess
the case.
he
sir.
thought that he was safe.
He's Lieutenant Bob.
He
He's
thought he was
lieutenant. You
safe.
don't become lieutenant without knowing that stuff. Lieutenant Bob.
No,
is
he
just a
knew.
Dumbass.
He just thought he was safe. As-
Oh.
Not that he didn't know.
realize that Anthony knew.
Yeah, exactly. He thought that he and the old girl were
he
super
should have
safe,
been
and
spooked by the whole like, oh, you'll have to put your fingers
Yeah.
on her feral artery under her dress,
yeah,
Lieutenant.
he thought he was smarter.
Yeah.
He thought he was a winner. He
Yeah.
thought he was smarter than
Right.
old
His
Ted.
fracture. Yeah. Yep. Anyway, so basically the guy changes. He's gonna do the not guilty. He's gonna do the confession's not admissible. They don't have his prints on a gun that was used in the crime, so they don't have the
Correct.
murder weapon. And they're like, his confession's inadmissible.
He was under quote-unquote duress because
Well, no,
Lieutenant
it's
Bob...
conflict of interest, because Lieutenant Bob had a conflict of interest he did not reveal.
But the judge also said that he was under duress because Lieutenant Bob was
oh, yeah,
was
and
there. He's the one who
him.
questioned
yeah,
him.
He's like, oh, he beat me. He beat the confession out of me.
Yeah.
And told me he'd beat me again if I didn't confess. And they bought that shit. So basically, Willy's, Willy, Lucky Willy's, his old boss is like, okay, you're off the case. We need to do some damage control.
And he's come close to losing his new job, too, because he's really not even there yet.
Yeah, and they're like, you're kind of in jeopardy here because of Ted. Ted's just like totally ruining Willy's life. Willy, because he's egotistical, takes the case back. And while he's working the case, Ted calls him up, offers to buy him some coffee because he knows he's working late on this case. Kind of toys with him a little bit. It's like, ooh, sorry about your bad witness, Lieutenant Bob. And, uses his Irish accent some more for no apparent reason. Gosling then uses his Texan accent for no apparent reason. And then, as Gosling goes into their library in the house, for some reason he's in their house, the crime scene, there's some butterflies on the wall. I don't know if you saw this or not, but there were some framed butterflies on the wall, like a little nod to Hannibal Lecter.
Lecter.
How do you spell that?
Lecter.
Okay. Hannibal Lecter, little nod. Gosling starts reading Dr. Seuss. First to the audience, then to himself. He's reading The Places You'll Go. Then it flashes he's reading The Places You'll Go to Jenny, the woman who got shot in the face.
Because I feel like that was supposed to be like one of her favorite books or something because she had something in her house. It was in her house, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Then there's another scene where Lieutenant Bob's like, hey, I got a dirty gun. And Willy's like, okay, that's a good plan B, that dirty gun. And then he calls his sexy secretary and he's like, look, I got to ask you to do something to do on the down low.
You really thought she was sexy?
In a mousy kind
All
of way.
All right, there you were, as you were.
I liked Willow. Anyway, so he tells her about Plan B, and so now it's a whole will he, won't he use the dirty gun. He does not use the dirty gun. Ted.
The audience applause. Waiting at.
Yeah, no, they don't. It comes back to trial, and basically Ted's like, Ted before, who didn't know what conflict of interest was, now knows to make a motion for an acquittal because of insufficient evidence. The judge is like, wow, you've gotten really good at this whole law thing since you've been locked up. He's like, yeah, I'm a ghetto barrister. Willy decides to not use the dirty gun. He says there's no further evidence. The acquittal is granted. Ted is free of the charge of attempted murder. And he says, even a broken clock is right twice a day, to Willy on his way out. And I had to stop and think about that. I'm like, that's only true if the hands aren't moving.
Right.
Okay. I was thinking maybe if they were off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if the hands aren't moving, a broken clock is right twice a day is what he should have said. Just created a little confusion for the audience, mainly me. Anyway, Willy loses. His sexy boss calls him. It's like, hey, I'll get you wasted. Implied sex.
Well, they've already had sex. At this point.
But yeah. And then there's another gunshot. Boom. Lieutenant Bob is dead. Lieutenant Bob shoots himself.
In the fucking courthouse. Like, why?
Yeah, why wouldn't you go home?
Yeah.
You know about crime scenes. Get in the bathtub like a proper cop.
Exactly.
Anyway.
It's just rude.
Now we're into Act 4. Ted's a free man.
And he has decided.
He gets his property, including his gun back, and a ride home from the police. Puts his gun in the drawer.
Like they stop at Denny's,
plays with his little mousetrap sculpture. Jenny's still in a coma.
She's on life support.
Willy goes to visit her. Ted wakes him up in the morning. Ha! Hi, prosecuting attorney who didn't get me in jail.
Hey, Dick Willy.
What are you in my wife's hospital room for? You have to be nice to me now, Willy. You know why? Because I'm in charge of the life support. Willy is speechless. Runs to his new job to complain that he doesn't know how to go to a civil court to file a temporary restraining order.
Which, that brings up a lot of questions.
Right? How did he get this job at Wooten and Swooten? I mean, he doesn't even know how to do a restraining. I mean, like, you wouldn't run to the new job and be like, look, I don't know how to do shit.
I don't know anything about
I can't even Google
civil
this.
Court is what he said.
I don't even know how to Google this because it was 2007.
Like, you would think, like, even his paralegal would have known that.
Right.
Like, he should have gone to her first.
Yeah. Anyway. That doesn't work. So then he goes to his old boss. And his old boss is like, you want to get a restraining order on him? Ha! Here's a joke for you. Ted's got a restraining order on you, Willie. Flip the script.
Yes.
Script is flipped.
He's-
And then there's a do not resuscitate thing happening. You know, next thing we're in the coma
Right.
room, and he's like pulling the plug.
Right. But Ryan is trying to get a court order to stop him from doing that.
Right. He runs to his sexy boss's dad, who's a judge.
Yes.
He's like, give me this illegitimate paper. Questionable ethics in play? Yes. So he
So I
takes
guess
this fake piece of paper, and he goes down to deliver it. And, like, there's this dramatic scene where he's getting taken down by the security guards at the hospital
security guards.
while Jenny is flatlining.
Yes, because, Ted was like, nope, he has wasted no time whatsoever. So
Right.
now Ted is like, booyah, I won, bitches.
Free man, kill my wife,
Yep.
ruin Willie's life, because Willie's now ruined.
Well, I guess it's time for a vacation.
Right.
I guess that's what I'm going to do.
Willie's moving out. His old boss comes by and tries to get him back. Come on back to the DA's office, and he's like, I let a man get away with murder. How am I supposed to live with myself? And his old boss is like, yeah, you learn to live with it.
He was like, actually, you let him get away with attempted murder.
Then there's
Ding, ding,
dramatic
ding, ding,
music,
ding, ding.
right? In case you didn't get that was a big point. There's immediately some dramatic music. Willie then studies Double Jeopardy, and they make sure you see that he's studying Double Jeopardy.
And he
And
goes
we're like,
back.
new evidence number 1. We all know Jenny's dead.
Right.
And then
He goes back and I think we forgot to mention that when Jenny and Lieutenant Bob were at their little secluded Pepsi getaway, he was there searching around, like tiptoeing around in their
Ted
bungalow.
was.
Yes,
Yeah,
Ted
yeah.
was there in their bungalow. And there's surveillance. There's video surveillance of this, and the cops have this. And this is what Willie is looking at over and over again, because you can't really tell what he's doing there. But this is what is, and
right. Willie goes and hangs out at the police office to try to get as much evidence as possible. Ted calls him, says,
some crazy shit.
hope you're having a good night. I'm going on a trip. I left you something. I couldn't figure out where to mail it since you're homeless and don't got a job now. Got any suggestions? They're like, hey, let's meet up at the crime scene, a.k.a. your house. So Ted, basically tells him, I switched out the guns. I got Lieutenant Bob's exact gun, or Willie figures it out, or something like that. And this is pretty much, the big reveal. Is like, how did Ted know what type of gun to get? Yet another hole. I mean, really? I guess he maybe had his private investigator, but, like, he went there in the bungalow same day. You can't go out the same day.
Right, and he
get a
had
gun.
it there, like, from what, I think there was, what we see in the, I don't know, like the flashback or whatever, he has the gun right there immediately.
Well, the whole time it was Lieutenant Bob's gun. Like, he went to the bungalow, and he took the replacement gun that
Right.
he had bought, put it into Lieutenant Bob's
holster.
and took Lieutenant Bob's actual gun.
Well,
Used Lieutenant Bob's actual gun to shoot his wife.
right.
And then when Lieutenant Bob came in,
Mm-hmm.
he
was
switched
like a
it out
whole
on him
sleight of
while
hand
he was
magician
trying-
trick.
Yeah, right, exactly, from yet another movie that Anthony Hopkins was probably in.
Maybe it was probably just he had this detective following them for a long time
Yeah.
and found out what type of gun he has. And so he would be able to go back to their little love nest.
Yes, and this is Finn. Then there's the new trial for actual murder. Willie's back in the DA's office. Roll credits.
Yes, even Ted is like, hey, yeah, that you know what, I'm going to give you a brand new confession. Ha yeah, I did it.
Right.
But double jeopardy, ha. So,
Like,
and
no,
then,
no, see, it was attempted murder.
See?
Now she's dead. See,
because you had to pull the plug.
Right.
All right. So, all in all, how would you rate this movie?
Well, too many legal complications. It's just like, I don't know.
But you were kind of, I mean, I guess you being so close to that process and knowing the actual
Well, that's what I'm
workings of
saying
it.
is
I mean,
if you weren't real close to the legal
yeah.
process.
So, I mean, just your own personal.
I don't like movies where the plot twist is all about the legal fine-tuned
Oh, really?
Jeopardy double.
Okay.
John Grisham's of the world and
So 1 to 5. What's your?
Daniel and Glenn can all go take a trip to West Hollywood together. Go
1 to
to
5.
An-N-Out Burger.
What is your star rating of this movie?
I give it 2.5.
Okay, that's fair. I'm gonna give it I'm gonna say a 4 because to me as the layman, that all of that, I'm not too close to it, and I wouldn't be able to catch those inner workings and blah blah blah. And I really enjoy like a decent plot twist, and even like a plot twist that I did not see coming. So I'm gonna give it a 4. How would you rate Ryan's performance?
I'm gonna go with 2.5.
Yeah, I'm gonna give him 3. It wasn't anything extra special.
Sometimes Texas, sometimes not.
Mm-mm.
Wasn't really any strong emotional anything. He didn't dance. He didn't sing.
Wait, we haven't gotten there yet. Are you down to watch it again?
No.
I'll probably watch it again in another 5 years or something.
Yeah,
It's probably like
maybe almost just to see, because he's cocky and you know what the loophole is now.
yeah. So if you guys are interested in watching Fracture, it is streaming on Amazon right now. You can rent it for $3.99. It's probably running on Stars or HBO. Maybe it's an older movie. You could probably find it come up on the weekends on TNT or something like that. Let's get into the Bechdel test real quick. It's pretty simple. The Bechdel test, if you guys are unaware of it, the rules are as follow. For a movie to pass the Bechdel test, it has to have at least 2 named women in it. I don't think it does. Wait, he's got his secretary has a name?
Mona.
Okay, so we've
Jennifer Crawford, Nikki Gardner.
Okay, yeah.
Boss.
Okay. They have to talk to each other. No.
Nope.
So this movie does not pass the Bechdel test. So we are going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with the reading from the Book of Gosling, as well as to find out if this movie checks off Ryan Gosling's movie traits. All right, so yeah, I mean, there wasn't much of a soundtrack in this movie, just a typical film score, so nothing too exciting about that. So we can get into the Gosling gauge, and does he sing or dance? No.
No.
It's a little
Does he dance at the ball? No, he doesn't.
no, and it's just, no. Is his character off-putting or eccentric? No.
Pudding.
Is off-putting?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's questionable ethics.
Hmm.
It's off-putting to me.
Okay. Yeah, I don't really. He's definitely not eccentric. Did he disappear into his character? No.
Was there much of a character to disappear into?
No.
No.
Character smug level 1 to 5.
Yeah, 2.5.
I'm gonna be like a 3.
Okay.
It's pretty smug. Like 4. Like the balls on this guy to sleep with his boss, with his new boss. And, like, his questionable ethics, that's also, and the fact that even him coming out the gate, like, trying this case, he wasn't really paying much attention.
Okay, 4 on the smug.
Okay. And I know that you hate this question, so I won't ask you. Is this character sexually attractive? No. Now, let's go.
Thank you.
Let's go to the Book of Gosling. We like to read from 100 Reasons to Love Ryan Gosling. This book is by, you should know it by now, Joanna Bennick. I would highly suggest, if you are a Gosling fan, to go pick this up. It's a fun little read on Amazon. All right, number 40, where we are. He's never worn his underwear on top of his pants. Okay. Speculation is rife as to which superhero movie Rai would lose his comic book virginity to. When an interviewer suggested to him that he could play The Flash in upcoming movie Justice League, he didn't seem desperate to audition. Here's the thing. Drive was my attempt at the superhero movie. I had a costume and everything, a scorpion jacket. It was like my cape. Okay, Ryan, we've embraced the drag queen jacket. Fact is, we know that Ryan doesn't need to play a superhero because he is one. Number 41. He breaks up street brawls. And he does it wearing a sexy stripy vest top. If you Google Ryan Gosling breaking up fight, you can see amateur phone footage of Rai in action. No need to trust the teenage girl's shouts of, it's that guy from The Notebook. You'll know for sure it's him as soon as you lay eyes on those perfect, peace-loving arms. No matter that Ryan later admitted he shouldn't have stepped in because the guy he was protecting turned out to be stealing from a street vendor. A case of Ryan indulging in some aiding and abs betting. Oh well, I'm still gonna swoon. Okay, number 42.
It's a real thing.
He saves British people's lives. No, not just by being so much more perfect toned and cool than any British person could ever hope to be. He literally actually saved the life of a British journalist who was about to be knocked down by a car in New York before Rye whisked her to safety. Oh, to be that confused British lady who forgot about right hand drive and was rewarded with a hug from Ryan.
Wow, it's a tongue twister.
Yeah. 43, he's not a Culkin. Well, that's a little rude. While
What's wrong with all the Culkins?
while Lickle Wayne and Macaulay Culkin shared many similarities back when they were kids, both blonde, disgustingly cute child stars born in 1980, it's fair to say that poor old Mac definitely got the shittier deal. Sure, initially the odds were stacked in his favor, while Wyan was being underused in the Mickey Mouse Club. I guess she's Wyan. Why is it Wyan? All right. While Wyan was being underused on the Mickey Mouse Club, it was kind of depressing because when I got there, they realized I wasn't really up to snuff in comparison with what some of the other kids were able to do. Occasionally, I'd have a sketch here and there, but I didn't end up working that much, which is disheartening. Mac was the highest paid child star in history, but when the tables turned, while Ryan became ever hotter and more castable, Mackie C descended into a freaky-eyed, grungy pit of drugs and obscurity, divorcing his parents and getting married and separated before he turned 20. Number 44. Why do we have to diss on Macaulay Culkin like that? That was...
This isn't a book about them.
That sounded personal. Number 44. What did Macaulay Culkin do to you, Joanna?
Yeah. Inquiring minds want to know.
Number 44. He'd have been amazing in Home Alone. In his innate social conscience, there's no way Ryan would have tortured those deluded burglars with such inhumane glee. He'd either have stared at them with his kind, intelligent, but droopy eyes and discussed their life choices through the medium of ukulele, or he'd have just slit their throats swiftly and cleanly. None of that booby trap bullshit. Bring on Drive Home Alone. And number 45, he's not a Mormon. He somehow managed to grow up not a Mormon in a Mormon household. In his own words, I wasn't really Mormon, my parents were. My mom was really cool. She said this is an option, but this isn't the only option. This is an idea, but this isn't the only idea. You have to find your own truth. When asked about Mormonism, Gossett said, I never really could identify with it. That's lucky because one thing Mormons ain't allowed to do is watch R-rated movies, and I'm guessing the rule also prohibits Mormons from appearing in them. So a Mormon Ryan wouldn't have given us Drive or Blue Valentine, but luckily this isn't so, and his torso is forever captured on celluloid in all its pectoral beauty. And that is...
A mouthful.
Yeah.
Yeah, she needs to learn shorter sentences.
100, that's 5 of the 100 reasons to love Ryan Gosling. So, we have come to the end of this podcast. Thank you.
Ta-da!
That is it. Thank you, Dan, for watching and reviewing Fracture with me.
It wasn't that bad.
And if you guys have seen Fracture, we would like to know what you thought of it. So you can let us know via Facebook, Down to Watch, or...
Thanks for making cookies.
You're welcome.
If you are going to convince somebody to watch this movie with you, I highly recommend you make some cookies.
Or any movie.
Make those cookies, because a hot cookie after... Doesn't matter how mediocre a movie is. A hot cookie
Hot
after...
snickerdoodle.
It's like those hot cookies on a plane. Hot cookies in a hotel room.
I mean, so yeah, if you guys have seen Fracture with or without cookies, let us know what you thought of it. Down to Watch Facebook page or at DTW Podcast on Twitter. You can also send us an email, downtowatchpodcast@gmail.com. And also, please subscribe, follow, like, rate, review, all the things on SoundCloud. We are under Rugged Angel Productions with several other fantastical podcasts, as well as the same on iTunes. So, so until next week, we are out.
Make cookies.